Me, 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 me. Hello, early people, early birds. Yeah, I can't start for 4 minutes, so you just gotta wait. I'm here, though. I'm not gonna start. I've been starting late a lot lately because my life is a hectic mayhem. What is going on? Where's that coming from?
Hello, early people, early birds.
What is...
Yeah, I can't start for 4 minutes, so just gotta wait. I'm here though.
You mute this whole site.
Sorry, I've been starting late a lot. My life is...
That's it. Haha. I blame you, YouTube. See, this is why you start the stream early before you're actually saying anything useful. Huh. How do you like them apples? Yeah. I'll be there soon. Dun, 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 dun. Please hold. Dun, 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 dun. You know, it occurs to me I should probably... Maybe I could use an eraser. There we go. That's pretty close. Yeah, I might have to pick you guys up a little bit into the show just to show the studio off. The audio sounded all right when YouTube leaked me. Thanks a lot for that. Leaky YouTube. Okay, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Just want to make sure there's I don't want to leave anyone behind. Don't be sad if... Hold on a second. You know what? I'm going to do an invite on Facebook. What the heck? Dude, where are you? The stream is starting. That's fun. Let's see. Now I have to find my, oh no. To find the oh, that was easy. You ever have like a million tabs open in your browser and you're like, what am I doing? And it's just like weaponized. It's just awful. You're like, what is wrong? Your poor computer's like, yeah, I need more hard disks just to cache the memory for the tabs you never look at. I feel like that's a single-handed environmental disaster going there. Thanks, Rich. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you, everybody who wished me luck tonight. I've had a lot of people wishing me luck. There's a bunch of big announcements. All right, let's get started. 3, 2, 1. I believe it is 8 o'clock. So let's do this. Hello and welcome to the Technocrat Live. I'm your host, Matthew Newhall. I'm also my own engineer, so if I seem a little distracted, well, that's what happens when you're your own engineer. This is my new studio. This is a dedicated studio just for the Technocrat Live. We have plenty of room for a guest or multiple guests. In fact, I have multiple tables. I'd like to show off the furnished. It's a little chaotic in here, but the furnished studio. Maybe I'll do that a little bit later. You know what? I'll do that at the end of the show. If you hang around at the end of the show, I'll just do a quick pan around the room so you can check out how this place looks when it's more or less ready to go. There's a few things I'm going to change, but I'm pretty happy. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really glad to see you guys. The elephant is the room. So this room is the big story. I now have a dedicated office / studio that's become Moonbase Prime. This is where the Technocrat Live will broadcast from unless I'm doing an on-site interview. I'm not against those, but I will probably drag my feet because this is a pretty sweet setup. It's got great parking. It's got transportation. It's a nice building. It's a nice office. I feel comfortable here. I expect my guests will feel comfortable here. I can make them comfortable here. because I can provide them with the basics. Like, this is fresh, hot coffee I made for myself right now in my coffee machine. How glorious is that? Hold on. And, of course, if my guests prefer wine, that's available too. Hold on a second. I'm getting a message from Beyond. But I should probably figure out how to get that going. All right. It won't let you answer. I'm sorry. Well, thanks for checking in, Sue. All I got to say is I'm not sure why it won't let you post a comment on the YouTube stream. Yeah, I got some viewers. So I'm not really sure what the heck's going on. I mean, I can't really debug YouTube and do the show at the same time, but we'll talk after, and maybe we can set up a private viewing to debug and harass the YouTube official geeks and say, hey, what's going on with this? As far as I know, comments are working. Please, if you want, I would love it if you guys would comment. Comments. Ariella, what's up? How's it going? Okay, we have a comment on YouTube, so the YouTube comments are indeed working. It's not just a lie. So, but I'm sorry you're having trouble, Sue, and I promise if we can't, even though I can't do anything with you right now, I will help you at a later date. So the big, if you haven't figured it out, I am now multicasting. I am streaming on 2 platforms. I am on Odyssey, and I'm also on YouTube. I actually have quite a number of subscribers on YouTube, just for the replays, not even for the live show. So who knows what the live show will do to my stats on YouTube? Hopefully they'll blow up. Of course, I love you all no matter where you are, but I will say this about Odyssey. Odyssey is a Web 2.5 tech. YouTube is still very much a Web 2 tech. And so I'm a technocrat. I prefer the higher tech. Of course, the reason that a lot of the Web 2 companies don't want to go to 2.5 or 3 is because it undermines their business model. I understand. I'm not mad, but at the same time, I'm going to multi-stream to multiple platforms. YouTube's in the news, by the way. That'll come up later. And so, yes, huge news, both the new studio and I'm now multicasting on multiple platforms. Awesome. Thanks so much to Steve. Yeah, that's the Steve that used to be my engineer, the guy who used to be sitting behind the desk that I now have pulled in front of me on wheels, right? So that's, you got to see the setup. It's sick. But I figured out how to be my own engineer and not have it be too distracting. Everything's just kind of laid out like a buffet and like a digital buffet in front of me. So anyway, thanks to Steve. He actually donated a fridge to the studio. So, yeah, I'm getting along great with the Area 22 folks. I love them. I definitely want to have them on the show as guests in the new studio. I don't know if they're up for it, but I would love it. Doing This Right. Hello. Hi. Doing This Right. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, so I would love to have them both on I would have all of them, all the Area 22 folks, everybody who I've been on Area 22 with. I'd love to have them all on the show. So also, I would like to say that what do you guys think is next? So I've done a few things recently. I have a couple of requests that I'm thinking about. I have a dedicated space. Hey, Rich, thanks for tuning in. Awesome. I have a dedicated space now for, which gives me a lot of options as far as doing interviews. This is a interview and news show. I do news at the beginning of every single show. So tech ethics news specifically. So what's right and what's wrong in the tech world. And if you don't think you care, well, if you live in the Eastern Seaboard, look at the smoke out your window. Unless you're driving like a grandma, look in your mail for the tickets from the speed cameras. Think about every time you've been frustrated by a UI decision you can't control on whatever piece of hardware, including your phone. Yeah, you care about the technocracy. This is a big deal to you. It affects you all the time. So this show matters to you. And this is something that really nobody else is talking about. Tech ethics is a huge topic. So, and of course, I talk about it with my guests. And the great part about this is I can have anybody on the show, and they can talk about what the topics are on the show. All right, so please, if you're not subscribed to either Odyssey or YouTube, I don't care which. If you asked me and you really didn't care, I'd say Odyssey. The one trick with Odyssey is if you're subscribing for the first time, before you can comment, you have to create a stream manually. You can create it and call it anything. You never have to use it, and then you can comment. That's the only thing that's blocking you from commenting. We've had problems with users not being able to do that before. YouTube does it too. They just do it silently. They don't ask you about it. So please subscribe. Love this show, share it, and I want to see comments. I love the comments. Keep them coming. I will interact with you as long as it's plausible to do. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the Dystopia Report. Take a little sip here. Oh man, the plans I have. There will definitely be AI involved in the engineering side because I don't want to be making all these decisions while I'm also reading from the script about the news and talking to my guests. My guests come first, so the technical may falter a little bit, but hopefully it won't have to if I can get some machine decision making in there. Okay, so AI is our first topic for the Dystopia Report because dystopia is everywhere. Google determined to have Google DeepMind has written a more efficient sort. So if you don't know what Google DeepMind is, it's it's not AI. AI is a misnomer. It's machine learning. There, if you're a super geek, now you know. Now you don't have to feel bad about that anymore. Anyway, so Google DeepMind has written a more efficient sort program. So if you're not familiar with computer science, this is a big deal in computer science. New algorithms do not come around very often in computer science. It's actually a very rare thing. And this is like earth-shaking. Like nobody made any changes to the sort algorithms in like the main open source C library in 10 years. That's how infrequently these changes happen. The interesting thing is about this is that it uses a different algorithm for sorting 5 through sorting 8 items versus sorting 4. And this is something that's generally considered to be a no-no in computer science. Algorithms aren't considered to be mature unless they can work for every number of cases, or n cases as it's known as. This is you kind of prove that this works through mathematical induction. In other words, it works to infinity. But the AI is like, I don't care about your stupid nomenclature. I'm going to use different algorithms at different set sizes. And this is actually really interesting because this represents a completely different point of view from the disorganization that normally is humans from the point of the AI. So this is something that having machine learning in addition to a human being will give you two very different perspectives and possible additional solutions to a rarely solved kind of problem. Okay, so that's it for that story. Regulation is coming. So Sam Altman, who is OpenAI, he's the CEO of OpenAI, and if you don't know what OpenAI is, that's the company that makes ChatGPT, has come out and basically said, we really needed an organization like the IAEA to be formed to control AIs. Nifty, and I have some suspicions as to why he's saying that now. I mean, it's his freaking company, but of course there's going to be other companies too. But if you don't know what the IAEA is, that is the International Atomic Energy Association. Association, is that right? Agency. The International Atomic Energy Agency. And it is the agency that basically tries to prevent nuclear weapon proliferation. So, that's a pretty hectic comparison. It sounds like a very much doomsday view from him. And that's actually, that doomsday view perspective is backed up by the possibility that, how should I put this? It's the AI problem is similar to, I didn't put this in my notes. Well, all right, I'm going to let it go. But yeah, it looks like he's really nervous about where AI is going, and I'm not happy with that either. So but I don't know that he's necessarily seeing other AI companies as the primary problem. He may be seeing open source as it. And this is coming from my third story in the AI section. Big companies aren't really ready for open source AI. This is actually a story, an article written by Bruce Neer and who was Jim Waldo, and the two of them. It's published in Slate, but it's easy enough to find. Basically, what he's saying is that we ain't seen nothing yet. Now I remember what it is. So ChatGPT has basically said they have no timetable for when GPT-5 is coming out. So, I mean, this is a company with a product that everyone is clamoring for. It's the fastest growing product in all software products ever. And people can't wait for the new version, and they're not going to release it because they're worried about how effective it's going to be and the effect that that's going to have on the economy and the social structure. Wow. Holy cow. And apparently, well, that's great. You can't really stop open source. And the open source application options are out there. I've discussed this before. You can run an AI on your laptop in a local program with a local neural net, and it works just fine. And it doesn't need a lot of horsepower once it's been populated, once the neural net's been populated. So, holy cow. I think it's pretty clear that even the industry leaders are terrified not only of AI, but of open source AI. And you know what? I'm not going to feel bad about that because, this is open source is the state of computer science, and science is going to be at least part of the solution to how we deal with this. Okay, so that's it for the AI section. Let me know if you think that we're all doomed. And let's get on to tech. So YouTube will no longer play politics. Here's that YouTube story that was in there. Apparently they will be not removing content that they think is false. Apparently YouTube is decided that they gave very sketchy kind of like, moral relativist arguments for why they're making the change. It was a morally relativist argument in the first place for censoring people. Specifically, they talked about election interference stories, but it's not just election interference stories. It's also it's also a ton of different political stories. There were a lot of a lot of people joke around about topics that are off limits and you shouldn't be talking about on YouTube. I am on YouTube right now and I'm talking about them, so we'll find out, won't we? But, if for some reason a video is struck from YouTube, it's available on Odyssey, and that's the problem, is that a lot of people have not only turned to their independent advertisers in their own space to keep them afloat, but people have started going cross-platform or ignoring YouTube altogether. What YouTube's really nervous about with this change in their political policy is relevancy. They're a little worried they're becoming irrelevant. So, that's entirely possible that they're going to be irrelevant. And Web 2 is in big trouble. That thing that Bruce Neer was talking about, that is Web 3. AI is Web 3. I was wrong. There is the thing that I described as Web 3 coming. That's next. But that's actually Web 4. Web 3 is just running AI on your local machine and having it solve problems for you. Because guess what? You can't really build a walled garden when you have something that's essentially the gelled after effects of a supercomputer that can dedicate its entire brain to peeking around the walled garden. Walled gardens are over, man. It's over, man. Game over. So, so on to Instagram, speaking of Web 2.0, apparently Instagram's algorithms seem to be the most offensive at promoting pedophile networks. This is out of the Wall Street Journal. Don't get mad at me. But the Wall Street Journal wrote an in-depth piece on it, and it does indeed look like they are not only turning a blind eye to pedophiles and pedophile networks, preying on children either through images or directly through contacts and DMs, but it's also a commercial industry. There's quite a bit of money being made. It's actually commercial pedophile organizations that are getting promoted. I mean, one of the things that they cite, an easy example, is hashtags that are blatantly, at least to a human being, they're only relevant to someone who's looking for a pedophile connection. So why would you even name a hashtag that? So go check out the Wall Street Journal company story. I'm not going to get more into that. It seems like a minefield, but I mean it is important. So check it out. And now you know there are nicknames already running around for Instagram. So I'll just let your imagination run wild on that. All right, so it looks like 4,000 cars, including Porsches, Audis, and Lamborghinis and Bentleys. So a cargo ship filled with cargo containers, filled with luxury cars, burned at sea. And we're talking 4,000 freaking cars. It was called the Felicity Ace. And I say it's called because the fire burned for 2 weeks. And then when the fire finally went out on its own, they didn't put it out. It sank while they were trying to tow it to port. All those cars are gone. There is absolutely nothing salvaged from the ship. It is no one died, no one was hurt, but holy cow, very expensive. Apparently, the reason they couldn't put out the fire was that a lot of the cars were, maybe all the cars, at least a lot of them, were lithium-ion battery powered. So, it turns out seawater does absolutely nothing against lithium-ion battery fires. So they couldn't put it out with water. Yeah, so they have a pretty good plan for putting ships out at sea, and it just doesn't work when that ship happens to be moving a large amount of lithium batteries. And now it's all at the bottom of the ocean. Apparently, the ship also had quite a bit of oil on it. It was also doing an oil delivery, and the oil is now leaking out of the ship to the surface of the ocean. They're monitoring the situation. Yeah, so Felicity Ace, not so ace. And on a lighter note in tech, Apple apparently is now claiming just released the smallest, a.k.a. the thinnest, 15-inch laptop. Their new AirBook 15-inch is the thinnest. There's nothing thinner in the market. So if you're looking for an ultra-lightweight 15-inch, it looks like Apple's your best bet this week. Who knows, in a week or a month. But right now, that's it. They do have Pro models. But, of course, they're heavier because they have heavier-duty hardware. So if you don't necessarily need the fastest computer in the world, but you need something that's very, very light and very, very thin, and you don't want your back broken by the massive load in your backpack or your satchel, that's the way to go. All right, that's it for tech. Let's get on to tech government. Okay, so holy cow. This is a follow-up to a previous story. I'm not sure why I led with it as the highlight. Maybe because, I think I just had to rearrange it this way because I wanted to match up stories in other sections that were adjacent to each other, and this is something on the front. New York City sues Hyundai and Kia for the amount of theft. It turns, if you didn't hear the story, what? Hold on a second. I'll get to your comment in a second, Ariel, but let me get to a good stopping place of the story. Yeah, so New York City is actually suing Kia and Hyundai for making their cars too stealable. I did a fairly extensive piece, I think 2 weeks ago, on Hyundai and exactly what's going on. But basically what it looks like is the unit that does the chip encryption and translates confirms that the chip is real in the key. When that unit is physically removed from the car, instead of failing to locking the engine, it fails to making the engine function. So all you have to do is yank the unit out of the steering column and then just use a USB cable to start the car. So basically, it doesn't fail off, it fails on. Right. So you can see why this is a huge problem. They actually misrepresented it in this story, but New York City suing them absolutely seems to be real. And so it looks like it's also California, Cleveland, and Milwaukee. So quite a bit of lawsuits going on there. New York City has plenty of company. I just wanted to get to Ariel's comment about the ship burning to the water, burning to the bottom of the sea. Tesla went on fire, and the fire department used 67,000 gallons of water to put it out. Average car uses 700 to 1,000 gallons. Yeah, I believe it. And, this is a huge problem. And, of course, I've covered extensively a bunch of lithium-ion battery technology improvements on this show as science and tech both And one of the problems with our patent system is that if somebody comes up with the ultimate superior solution, but it doesn't necessarily work for a company financially to release that solution, it just sits and languishes. There's plenty of more efficient, more effective, less likely to go into thermal runaway lithium-ion designs out there. We do not need to be using lithium-ion as it is right now, but, there it is. We just can't get past our own patent system. So the same thing that encourages new development is also blocking us from getting access to it. Compulsory licensing, people, it's the only way. All right, anyway, I'd love to hear if I'm wrong about that, but thanks for the feedback on the car fire water magnitudes. All right, I got a weird story here. I'm not thrilled with covering this, but it looks like it's getting a lot of coverage, so I want to put it out there. Not saying it's not exciting if it's true. I'm just very skeptical. So a gentleman called David Charles Gurich, who's a decorated military officer and is claiming to have private possession of part of a non-human craft, or a UFO, in other words. Not only that, but he worked for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. So basically, he was on the spooky UFO patrol for the feds, and apparently he's giving congressional testimony, and he's out there doing interviews, telling people, "Hey, I've got a UFO. Aliens are real, and we've got their tech, and lots of different countries have their tech, and lots of different organizations." And the fact that you haven't been read in means that you're just not a technocrat. So suck it, not technocrats. Well, if you're listening to this show, you probably are, so now you know. But anyway, I'm a little skeptical. There are people out there who spend quite a bit of their time and energy on UFO stories. And cheers to that. No complaints there. I'm actually showing them a sign of respect by not getting deeper into this. I mean, it was a massive story. I could barely skim through it all. It does look legit. There's multiple sources for it. Please, if somebody knows if this is the real deal and this person has actually had their hands on an alien craft and is telling the truth about what happened with it, let me know in the comments, or send a link to a story where it's true. The guy's name, again, is, I turned the page, David Charles Gurich. So, he's a decorated military officer and a bunch of other stuff. Makes sense. That's who you would expect to be the whistleblower on this. Anyway, and one of the reasons, especially when it comes to government whistleblowers, that I'm skeptical is because sometimes government whistleblowers are not as they seem. So actually I had this story. It was a contributed story. Thank you for the contribution. I ran with it. A lot of people ran with it. Basically every news organization ran with it. It was the Skynet drone story. So apparently the story was from someone in the Air Force that when they fully program a drone with its own AI algorithms, like the ones I was telling you about that were running, you can run on your laptop and do searches for you, decided that the quickest way to complete its mission was to kill its controlling human. That was the biggest obstacle to it accomplishing its mission, which, of course, is insanely bad. That's exactly where something like Skynet could start, militarized hardware murdering humans to accomplish its goals. The Air Force is now categorically denying it, saying it's not true, this didn't happen. I mean, it didn't actually kill anyone. It was just a training simulation, but it killed the human in the training simulation. So they're saying it's not true at all. And, of course, the real problem with this is the whole original story was just a single source from the Air Force, and now that the Air Force is denying it, now we have to pretend like it's not true. It probably was true. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But it does us no good. This is the problem with military sources as whistleblowers without some kind of external corroboration. Great as, feel good, touchy-feely, hey, maybe that's the way things are going story, but you just don't know. Everything with the government, especially the military, is always fog of war. They're never being straight shooters. So, that according to the Air Force, that is now false, and everyone's running retractions. I'm not even running a retraction. I'm just telling you that they say it's false. They said it was true. Okay. They said it was false. Okay. Anyway, on to science, something a little more solid to put your solid feet on. So New Yorkers are the source on this because all you had to do is be able to fog a mirror in New York to know this happened. New York air quality was the worst in the world this yesterday. This is absolutely true. It was pretty fucking obnoxious. The sky was pink at points and orange at one point, and it was so dark the street lights turned on. And I mean, not just some of them, like all of them. It was really dark, midday, sun top of the sky. I mean, it looked like a lot of people are posting pictures from the new Dune movie when they're out in the desert and everything's all hazy as an example of what New York City looked like. It's true. It really was, and it was really toxic to breathe it. A lot of people had masks on. I would say the majority of people I saw on the street were masked or running for buildings, like not walking, running from their cars to buildings because they didn't want to breathe it in for very long. Supposedly it was just forest fire smoke. It did indeed smell like wood, but who knows what else is mixed in there. Of course, what else burned. The hazardous air index, which is normally considered to be the air index, which is considered to be hazardous, like nobody should be outside in it, at 301, is hazardous at 301. In New York City, it was 342. So 10,000 people in Quebec were forced to leave their homes, not asked to leave their homes, forced to leave their homes, and it's burned over 100,000 acres. Quebec is just north of New York, so it must have been a south-facing wind for this to have gone that way. Great. You know, a lot of people have a lot of deeper points about why they think this is happening, whether it's systemic planetary or whether it's apparently somebody was charged with arson. I'm not going to say anything else about that. Just go look it up. It's getting a little political when, just in case it's not true, you know, governments. Good coffee, good sip. Actually, it's really good coffee. Man, I really love making my own coffee. Coffee! Okay. So apparently there's a consortium of scientists operating out of the, what was it? The, why can't I find? Oh, the Rising Star Cave. I don't know if you heard about the Rising Star Cave, but it's a very winding, hard to access cave that people suspect was not so hard to access in the past, although they don't know. And it has quite a bit of buried dead humans in there. Well, it's not just Homo sapiens. It's also a precursor to Homo sapiens. So we're talking about pre-man, one of man's predecessors. Ancestors. Excuse me. Ancestors. Yeah. Is Homo naledi. So they found several of them. Not only they were wondering if people just crawled in there if the pre-people just crawled in there to die, but it looks like no, they were actually placed. Some of them were placed in the fetal position. So they think that this is actually a recorded instance of ceremonial burial. Excuse me. It's not COVID. The air's still a little messed up here, by the way, so you got to give me a pass on that. I think that this may be a sign that there was. Some people are like, look, this is a sign that they have complex behavior that isn't necessarily present in animals. They didn't have to have our massive brains for that to happen. Okay, true. And actually, I will say chimps cradle their and mourn their dead for up to a week. So it's not really surprising that highly intelligent primates have a different behavior for their dead. They already do that with living primates. Of course, there is major health advantages to not keeping your dead bodies around you. So there would probably be advantages to whatever tribe was burying these specimens. So I think it's possible that this is an indication of some kind of early compassion in prehumans, but I'm on the fence about that. ArsTechnical.com if you want to read more. There's a ton of detail, some stuff about cave carvings. I didn't take that part seriously because they're pretty incoherent. They're like, oh, maybe it's a language. Maybe it's just pretty pictures. I mean, they we can train chimps to make pictures now. It doesn't mean they get it. Doesn't mean they understand it. Okay, so not like we do. And last but not least, the final story. This one's out of the California Institute of Technology. Apparently, we have had solar power beam from space. So this is really awesome. This is as geeky as it gets. They were able to send a satellite up into space with a solar panel about the size of a dinner plate, which is actually going to be the norm if you think about it, because you don't want to have a lot of weight up there. What you can do is you can make it extremely temperature resistant and then unfurl like a reflective umbrella around it because you're in space. So sturdiness kind of doesn't matter. And so something about the size of a reflective dinner plate, and was able to beam a microwave of energy to the Earth from the satellite. Crows more than they're dead too. Yeah, and it makes sense because the funny thing is, so this is one of the arguments I made for Civgene, is that usually animals will behave very differently for immediate family members, either brothers or sisters or parents or children, and then also somewhat differently for grandparents, cousins, and the outer circle. This is something that's also shared with psychopaths. They do generally tend to give a little more slack for their immediate family and give them a little more compassion. So it's not really surprising that if an immediate family member died, like a parent or a child, that there would be sadness there. This is a lot of precedent for that. So, I still think it's interesting though that we were burying our dead for as far long ago as 200,000 years or more. So we were beaming a microwave of energy from space. It was a very low-powered microwave. It was only 200 milliwatts. It was a 200 milliwatt beam. We did it. We beamed solar energy from a satellite down to the surface of the Earth, and it's entirely possible that we can have extremely efficient, extremely high-powered solar arrays up in space. I mean, there's so many satellites up there. It's amazing no one's even tried this yet. Getting things up into space is relatively cheap, partially because of the commercialization of space. So, yay for that. That may be a huge source of truly net zero energy on the planet. Just don't stand in the way of that microwave beam. All right. So that was science.org. That's it for Dystopia Report. Hold on, I'm going to take a sip. So I got to ask you guys, who wants to see the studio? I'm going to give a quick little tour around. And in the meantime, while I'm waiting for your answer on that, because I know there's a bit of a lag, I'm going to say, please, if you enjoyed this, give this show a like, give it a love, comment, subscribe to the Technocrat Live, both on YouTube and Odyssey. Just subscribe to them both, because I'm not guaranteeing that all content's going to go in both places. If it's convenient for me to just stream to one, or I have a specific purpose to just stream to one, I'm going to. I have viewers and fans on both. To me, well, these Web2 platforms are going to be just kind of ubiquitous and like water or something in the future. It doesn't really matter which rain barrel you get it from. It's just a rain barrel. It's just the rain you're after. So, please tell others about the show. Tell others about the. You want to see it, huh? Okay, cool. Excellent. So at least Ariel is willing to stick it out and see the studio. I think this is going to be worth your time, folks. Okay, so this is not a business model. I mean, I'm not. I have a benefactor. I'm looking for sponsors. Please, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, let me know. I'll add you in. But this is not about making money. This is just something I want to do because I want to connect with people, keep up. And I want to interview people, so I'm going to be getting back to interviews. Now I've got the space set up. Life should be it should be relatively easy. I can just meet someone here and do an interview. And so there may even be out of the normal time. So you probably want to subscribe for alerts on both of these platforms, because if there'll be an alert that, hey, there's a show coming up. I'll put it up as soon as I know. I may do interviews on a time other than Thursday. Depends on what works for the guest. Okay, so let's check this out. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear you, so I'm just going to do this silent. Maybe you can hear me. Let's see. How does that sound? It's pretty quiet. You know what? I've disconnected the mic. Screw it. All right, now I can talk to you while I walk. So of course here I am on camera. I hope that didn't pull something loose. Well, we're gonna find out. It looks like I'm still live. So all right, so here we are. This of course is the table where I have another table for the guest here. I have a giant curtain wall. Let's get over here. Very poorly planned. All right, so hopefully you can see this. Right here, you see this? This is a rolling table right here that I've got. This is actually my engineering booth, and it can roll anywhere. So I can move it, you know, where I see fit for the show. I've got another table, so I can do the V table setup, so I can have up to 5 guests. So we can do panels. Here we got the door. We got a fridge here. We got a full-size fridge, baby. And of course, we've got the customary brick. You know, it wouldn't be the Technocrat Live without some brick here. Thanks so much for the donation of that sign up there. That was really nice, Jen. I appreciate that. And of course, we went with the all black motif. But this is the room. Let me back up a little bit so you can see the whole thing. Hope you can still hear me. Okay, so this is the studio. I'm ready for interviews. I'm going to have some more tchotchkes out. I'm going to definitely this. I put an eraser on the ground. I'm going to tape out spots for the cameras on the ground. This is all new, so sorry about that. Anyway, I hope that was a good tour. It's as good as I can give with a strapped-down camera. I'm kind of amazed that I didn't yank it out of the computer. Okay, so thanks so much for tuning in. And oh, that's ugly. That's a terrible angle. Thanks so much for tuning in. And choose wisely. Choose to share. Good night, everyone.